When Mom told us she wanted to have her birthday dinner at a fancy restaurant, I actually felt happy. It had been a long time since the whole family sat together for anything special. I thought maybe things were getting better between us. Mom, whose name is Caroline, sounded cheerful on the phone, and for a moment, it reminded me of how things used to be when I was younger, when she'd call just to ask how my day was. I spent that whole day thinking about what to wear. I didn't have much, but I wanted to look nice for her birthday. I even stopped by a store to pick up a small gift, a silver bracelet I thought she'd like. It wasn't expensive, but it came from the heart. On my way to the restaurant, I kept replaying old memories in my mind, birthdays, family trips, times when laughter came easily. I hoped maybe this dinner would bring that back. When I arrived, the place was bright and warm. I could see my mom and siblings through the glass window before I even walked in. Jason was joking around, Lily was laughing, and Mom looked relaxed, the way I hadn't seen her in years. It actually made me smile. I fixed my hair, took a deep breath, and walked inside. The hostess led me toward their table. As I got closer, something felt off. There were 8 people already sitting, my family, a couple of aunts and uncles, but when I glanced around, I noticed something strange. There were only 8 chairs. At first, I thought maybe someone had stepped away. Maybe a chair was coming. I smiled and said, "Hey everyone." Lily looked up quickly, her smile fading just a little. Jason kept eating like I wasn't even there. Mom turned her head slowly, her face calm, almost blank. "Oh," she said, "I didn't think you'd come." That sentence hit me harder than I expected. I froze for a second, trying to process what she meant. "You invited me," I said, keeping my voice low. She shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. "Well, we already started. There's not much room." The waiter came over and started to bring an extra chair, but Mom shook her head. "No, that's fine," she told him. "We're good." I stood there, holding the small gift in my hand. No one said anything. My uncle cleared his throat, my aunt avoided my eyes, and Lily started fidgeting with her napkin. The room felt heavy, like everyone could feel how wrong it was, but no one wanted to speak up. I tried to laugh it off, but my throat tightened. "It's okay," I whispered. "I'll just see you later." As I turned to leave, Jason muttered something under his breath and chuckled. I didn't catch the words, but I caught the tone, cruel, careless. Walking out of that restaurant, I felt like a ghost. It wasn't just about the missing chair. It was about years of feeling like the extra person in my own family finally turning into reality. As I reached the table, my smile faded. Everyone was already there. Mom sitting at the center, Jason beside her, Lily across, and a few relatives I hadn't seen in years. The table was large, covered with candles and expensive dishes. For a second, it looked perfect. Then I noticed it. There were only 8 chairs. I stopped beside the table, holding the bouquet of tulips close to my chest. I looked around, thinking maybe someone had stepped away. But all the chairs were full, and no one seemed to notice I was standing there. My voice came out quiet but steady. "Hey, where should I sit?" Mom didn't even glance up from her menu. She just flipped a page and said, "Oh, honey, I didn't think you'd make it." Her words hit me like a slap. I blinked, trying to understand. "But you texted me," I said softly. She gave a small shrug, still not meeting my eyes. "Well, you're always so busy. I assumed you wouldn't come." Jason let out a small laugh under his breath, pretending to cough to hide it. Lily kept her eyes down, picking at her napkin like it might save her from the moment. My aunt smiled awkwardly at me, but said nothing. The silence around the table was heavy, uncomfortable, but no one moved to help. A waiter nearby noticed and quickly brought another chair, setting it near the edge of the table. Before I could even thank him, Mom raised her hand. "No, that's fine," she said firmly. "We're already settled." The waiter looked confused. "Ma'am, it'll only take a second." "I said it's fine," she repeated, sharper this time. The waiter hesitated, then took the chair away. I just stood there, staring at the empty spot where it had been. My heart started to pound. I could feel my face getting warm. It wasn't about the chair. It was about what it meant. I wasn't welcome. Not really. I looked at Jason, hoping for even a small sign of kindness, but he just smirked and took a sip of his drink. Lily gave me a quick, guilty glance, then looked away again. It was like no one wanted to acknowledge that this was happening, that I was standing there, uninvited in a place I was told to come to. I took a small breath and tried to stay calm. "It's okay," I said quietly. "I can grab something at the bar." My voice cracked a little at the end. Mom didn't respond. She just went back to reading the wine list, her expression flat and cold, as if I was a stranger who'd interrupted her dinner. I took one last look at the table, the polished silverware, the soft light, the faces I thought were family, and it all felt wrong. In that moment, I understood this wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't an accident. She had planned this dinner, counted the seats, and made sure there wasn't one for me. I forced a smile, even though it hurt. "Happy birthday, Mom," I whispered, and then I stood there, trying to stay calm even though my stomach felt tight. I didn't want to cause a scene, not in front of everyone. I forced a small smile and said, "It's okay. I can just sit at the corner. I don't need much space." Mom didn't even look at me. She just sighed and said, "You always make things complicated." Her tone was sharp, the same one she used when I was a kid and forgot to do something her way. The words stung, but what hurt more was how everyone else reacted. No one spoke. Jason looked down, pretending to check his phone. Lily just stared at her glass of water. My uncle coughed quietly, as if that would fill the silence. My aunt gave me a look that said she wanted to help but didn't dare. The restaurant had gone quiet around us. I could feel people from nearby tables watching, pretending not to. My hands started to shake. All I wanted was to sit, share a meal, and be part of my family for one evening. But somehow it had turned into this, another reminder that I didn't belong. I glanced at the empty space near the table and said again, "It's fine. I can just grab a stool. I don't want to bother anyone." I thought maybe that would make things better. Maybe she'd soften up. But she didn't. Mom leaned back in her chair and said, "No, you're already making it awkward. Just let it be." Her voice carried across the table, loud enough that a few people nearby turned to look. I could feel the heat rise to my cheeks. My throat tightened, and my chest ached like I couldn't get enough air. I tried to swallow the lump in my throat, but it was no use. The silence dragged on until I couldn't take it anymore. My voice came out small but clear. "I'll just head out," I said. No one stopped me. No one even said goodbye. I turned around slowly, my hands still holding the flowers I brought for her. I could feel every pair of eyes in the room on my back as I walked toward the door. Just as I was about to leave, I heard Jason's voice behind me, loud enough for the whole table to hear. "Guess some people never learn to fit in." Laughter followed. I froze for a second, staring at the floor. The words hit deep, sharper than I expected. For a second, I wanted to turn around and say something, anything. But then I realized it wouldn't change a thing. I kept walking. Each step felt heavy, like I was carrying years of hurt with me. The sound of their laughter faded as I reached the door. I stepped outside into the cool night air, my hands trembling, my heart pounding. Standing on the sidewalk, I took a deep breath and looked at the flowers I was still holding. They looked beautiful under the streetlight, white tulips, perfect and gentle. I almost laughed at how out of place they seemed. Then I placed them carefully on a nearby bench, whispered, "Happy birthday, Mom," and walked away without looking back. Turned around before anyone could see my eyes fill up. I reached my car and sat there for a long time without moving. The lights from the restaurant glowed through the windshield, and I could still hear faint laughter coming from inside. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I didn't cry right away. I just stared ahead, breathing hard, trying to understand how something as simple as a family dinner could hurt so much. The silence inside the car felt heavy. I could still see Mom's face in my mind, calm, cold, untouched by what had just happened. She had looked at me like I was a stranger who wandered into the wrong place. Every old memory came back like a flood. Christmas mornings when I'd wait for her to call, but the phone never rang. Birthdays where she'd send a short text hours late, if at all. Times I tried to visit, only to be told she was busy. I'd told myself for years that maybe I was imagining it, that maybe she still cared, just not in the way I hoped. But tonight, sitting in that car, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. She didn't forget about me. She had chosen to leave me out, again and again. I leaned my forehead against the steering wheel and finally felt the tears come. They weren't loud or dramatic, just quiet ones that wouldn't stop. My chest ached in that deep, dull way that only heartbreak can cause. I thought about walking back in there, saying something, forcing her to see me. But I didn't. I was too tired. Tired of trying to fit into a family that made no space for me. After a while, I wiped my face and sat back. The flowers I had left behind flashed through my mind, and for a second, I regretted leaving them there. But then I realized it didn't matter. She never would have taken them anyway. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were red and swollen, but beneath that, something else had started to show, something quiet but strong. I wasn't angry yet, not fully, but I could feel the beginning of it. Not the kind of anger that makes you lash out, but the kind that pushes you to finally change things. That night, something shifted inside me. I decided I was done chasing people who didn't want me around, done pretending I was fine when I wasn't. I had spent so long trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it. Maybe it was time to stop begging for a seat at their table and build my own instead. I started the car, took one last look at the restaurant, and drove away. The road ahead was empty, quiet, and dark, but for the first time, it didn't scare me. It almost felt peaceful, like I had finally left something behind that I should have let go of a long time ago. A few weeks passed after that night, and I tried to push everything out of my mind. I went to work, came home, and tried to live normally. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that table, 8 chairs, no room for me. I stopped checking my phone, stopped hoping for her messages. Then one afternoon, my phone rang. It was Mom. For a moment, I thought maybe she wanted to apologize. Maybe she finally realized how much that night had hurt me. I answered quietly, "Hey, Mom." Her voice was cheerful, like nothing had ever happened. "You missed quite a dinner," she said. "It was a lovely night. Jason got offered a position at my company, and Lily's moving in with me for a while." I swallowed hard. "That's nice," I said, trying to sound calm. She kept talking, her tone light, casual, almost proud. "I've been updating some paperwork, the business, the will, all that. It's time to get things in order. Jason and Lily will handle most of it when I retire." Her words hit me like a punch. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, frozen. "You mean you've already rewritten it?" She paused for a moment before answering. "Yes. It's for the best. You've always been so independent, sweetheart. You don't really need anything from me." The way she said it, like it was a compliment, made my stomach twist. I wanted to ask her why. Why I wasn't included, why she kept pushing me away. But I knew what she'd say. She'd remind me that I chose my own path, that I never asked for help. It was easier for her to pretend I didn't exist than to admit she'd left me out on purpose. When the call ended, I sat in silence. For years, I'd tried to tell myself that her actions weren't personal, that maybe she just didn't know how to show love. But this wasn't just emotional. It was official. I had been erased, not only from her heart but from her plans, her legacy, her family's story. I expected to feel furious, but I didn't. I just felt empty. I realized there was nothing left to lose. Begging wouldn't change anything, and trying to earn her approval had only broken me over and over. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at a blank notebook. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about what I could build. I decided I wasn't going to fight her or seek revenge to hurt her. I was going to find peace by proving that I could make it on my own, completely. I didn't want her money or her company. I wanted something bigger, to create a life that was mine, where no one could take away my place or pretend I didn't belong. That was the moment I stopped being the forgotten one. I wasn't her dependent child anymore. I was someone who would write their own story, one that didn't need her approval or her name to mean something. After that call with Mom, something inside me changed completely. I stopped waiting for her to see my worth and started focusing on proving it to myself. I had always loved design, spaces, color, and structure. It was something that made me feel calm and alive at the same time. I had thought about starting my own firm before, but her voice always echoed in my head. She used to say things like, "You don't have the discipline for that," or "You're not business-minded like Jason." This time, I didn't let her words stop me. I began small. I worked late nights in my tiny apartment, using a second-hand laptop and old software. I took on small projects, cafes, local offices, a few private homes. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. Every time I finished a project, I reminded myself that I was building something no one could take from me. The first few months were hard. Money was tight, clients were few, and there were days I thought about quitting. But I kept going. I treated every design like it was my last, every client like they were my first. Slowly, word started to spread. People liked my work, clean, creative, personal. Then one day, something unexpected happened. I got an email from a large company looking to redesign their corporate headquarters. When I saw the name, I froze. It was one of Mom's company's biggest rivals. I almost said no, afraid of what it might mean, but then I remembered how she erased me from everything. I said yes. That project changed everything. It went better than I could have imagined. They loved the final result and recommended me to 2 other businesses. Soon, my small firm wasn't small anymore. I hired 2 employees, then 5. Within a year, my company was thriving. People began to notice. My design started showing up in magazines and blogs. Some of Mom's clients even reached out, curious about working with me. I didn't chase them, but I didn't turn them away either. One by one, they switched over. Then one afternoon, my phone rang. It was her. Her voice was different this time, shaky, almost afraid. "You're trying to destroy me," she said. I stayed quiet for a moment, then answered calmly, "No, Mom. I'm not trying to destroy you. I'm just finally building a seat at my own table." There was silence on the other end. For years, she had made me feel small, like I had no place. Now she could see that I didn't need her permission to belong anywhere. After that call, I didn't feel guilt or pride, just peace. I hadn't done it to get back at her. I'd done it to free myself. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the forgotten one anymore. I was the one who built something from nothing, something that was completely, proudly mine. Months went by, and things started to change quickly. Word spread that Mom's company was struggling. Some of her longtime clients had moved their contracts elsewhere, and a few of her projects were delayed. I didn't celebrate it, but part of me couldn't ignore the irony. She had always made me feel like I'd never measure up. Yet now I was succeeding in the same field she once told me I didn't belong. Jason started calling me occasionally, mostly to ask questions about work or business advice. At first, I thought he was just being polite, but later I learned he was frustrated with Mom. She had been lashing out at everyone, blaming him for the company's problem. "She's impossible to please," he said one. "You did the right thing getting out." Not long after that, I heard Lily had moved out too. She couldn't take the pressure anymore. Mom had started blaming her as well, saying she was disloyal for even speaking to me. The family that used to sit around that big restaurant table now barely spoke to one another. Then one evening, I got an envelope in the mail. Inside was a simple cream-colored invitation. It read, "Dinner at Vincent's, 7 p.m. Let's talk." Mom. For a long time, I just stared at it. Part of me wanted to throw it away. I didn't want to walk back into the same place that had made me feel so small. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the child who wanted her mother's approval, couldn't ignore it. That night, I sat in my car outside the same restaurant, just like before. The lights looked the same, warm and inviting, but everything inside me felt different. I wasn't that broken person anymore. I was stronger now, steadier. When I finally walked in, a waiter led me to the back of the room. The same table stood there, but this time it was smaller, quieter. And there it was, an empty chair at the head of the table with a white card resting on the plate. My name was written on it in her neat handwriting. Mom looked older than I remembered. Her eyes were tired, her smile faint. She didn't say much at first, just motioned toward the chair. "Sit," she said softly. "You deserve your place." I stood there for a moment, unsure what to feel. Part of me wanted to remind her of the night she'd left me standing with no chair at all. But another part just felt sorry, not for myself, but for her. She had built everything around control and pride, and now it was all falling apart. I pulled out the chair and sat down slowly. She let out a shaky breath, maybe from relief, maybe from guilt. The silence between us wasn't angry anymore. It was just quiet, like two people finally realizing how far apart they'd drifted and how much had been lost in the space between. The waiter poured water into our glasses and left us alone. The quiet between us felt heavy, but not angry this time, just filled with everything that had never been said. Mom kept her eyes on her napkin, folding and unfolding it, trying to find the right words. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. Then she sighed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't even know where to start," she said. Everything fell apart faster than I thought it would. I didn't respond right away. I wanted to hear what she really meant, not just another excuse. She looked up at me finally, her eyes red and tired. "You were always different," she said. "So sure of yourself. You didn't need me like the others did. And I hated that. I told myself it was your fault, that you were cold, ungrateful. But the truth is," she paused, swallowing hard, "I was jealous." I felt my chest tighten. For years, I had imagined what it would sound like if she ever admitted she'd been unfair. But now that she was saying it, I didn't feel triumphant, just strangely calm. "You reminded me," she continued, "of everything I wanted to be and never became. Independent, brave. I wanted control over something, and I chose to take it out on you." Her voice cracked near the end. She wiped her eyes quickly, almost embarrassed to be seen crying. The restaurant was quiet except for the soft clinking of dishes and faint music in the background. I looked at her, and for the first time, she didn't seem like the woman who once made me feel so small. She looked human, flawed, tired, and finally honest. I didn't have much to say. Words felt unnecessary. I just nodded slowly, letting her know I heard her, that I understood. She looked down at her plate and whispered, "I don't expect you to forgive me." I leaned back in my chair, my heart steady now. "Maybe not right away," I said softly, "but I think I already have." The waiter came by with the check, setting it gently on the table. Mom reached for her purse out of habit, but I placed my hand on the bill first. "This one's on me," I said. She looked surprised. "You don't have to." "I know," I interrupted gently, standing up. "But I want to." I smiled faintly. "Consider it my way of saying I've forgiven you, but I won't forget." For a moment, she just stared at me, the same daughter she once dismissed as too independent. Only now, that independence wasn't a threat. It was strength. As I walked out of the restaurant, I didn't feel bitter or broken. I felt free. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it no longer controlled me. For the first time in years, I wasn't chasing her love or. A few months passed, and life felt completely different. My design firm kept growing faster than I ever imagined. We started getting clients from all over the state, and before long, our name was known everywhere. I was busy, but it was the good kind of busy, the kind that makes you proud of what you're building. One afternoon, Lily showed up at my office. She looked nervous, clutching her bag like she wasn't sure if she should even be there. "Can we talk?" she asked. We sat down, and for the first time in years, she spoke honestly. She told me how she regretted staying quiet that night at the restaurant, how she should have stood up for me. There was no defensiveness in her voice, just real remorse. I listened quietly. When she was done, I smiled and said, "The past hurt, but it doesn't have to decide our future." She nodded, tears in her eyes. A week later, I hired her as my marketing lead. Watching her find her confidence again felt good. It felt right. Jason, on the other hand, moved to another city. He called once, saying he finally wanted to build something on his own, without Mom's help. For the first time, I heard a bit of humility in his voice. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. I wished him luck, and that was enough. As for Mom, she sold her company. She told me she was tired of fighting battles that no longer mattered. She retired to a quiet town near the coast. Every now and then, I'd get a short message from her. Nothing deep, just little things like, "Hope you're well," or "Saw your company in the news." It wasn't much, but it felt peaceful. We didn't need to rehash the past anymore. We both understood it in our own way. One evening, after a long day at work, I drove past the restaurant where everything had happened. The lights glowed softly through the windows, and families sat together, laughing, talking, passing plates around. For a moment, I just sat there, watching. It didn't sting anymore. It actually made me smile, because I realized something that night. That empty chair at the table wasn't a symbol of rejection anymore. It was a reminder of growth. Sometimes, being left out isn't a punishment. It's an invitation to build something better, to create your own place where you truly belong. I drove away feeling lighter than I had in years. My hands didn't shake anymore when I thought about the past. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was proud. Life had a strange way of working out. I didn't get the seat at her table that night, but in the end, I built my own. One filled with people who valued me, respected me, and chose to stay. And this time, there would always be a chair waiting for anyone who needed a place to belong. For approval. I was finally enough for myself.